moving closer to the coast, only about 20 miles away. So the Coast Guard has a plan. Fire. CNN's Reynolds Wolf live in Venice, Louisiana this morning, right there on the tip out in the Gulf. Hey, Reynolds.
Hey, Kira, you know, the whole idea about doing this sounds like it'd be pretty simple, doesn't it? I mean, just to clean it up by just throwing a match out there. Well, let's be careful here. I mean, this could be a potentially very dangerous situation. They handle it in a very careful way. The way they go through this method is they use something that is called a fire boom, which is almost like an aquatic fence. And they're going to take this, about 1,000 feet of it from the state of Texas. They're going to borrow, they're going to use this in this endeavor. And what they'll do is they'll take off just the crude, not the sheen, the rainbow sheen, which will actually dissipate on its own. But they're going to take some of that crude, and what they're going to do is they're going to pull it off and then just do a controlled burn. But it's something they have to do very, very carefully. Now, just yesterday, I was with CNN photojournalist Steve Sorghum. We flew out of New Orleans with the Coast Guard, and from high above, let me tell you, from all the oil we could see, it's going to be a very tall order to take care of this mess.
From the air, the spill appears massive.
Yeah, you can definitely see it. Those are skimmers and booms trying to recover oil. Even from this height, there's plenty to see. At the surface, there's a little bit of a rainbow-like sheen, and much of that's going to be burned away by the sun's rays, but there's also a thicker layer of crude oil in places, and all of that's going to have to be skimmed away.
NOAA scientist Ed Levine says the oil moves with sea currents and winds, both affecting the slick's shape and size.
Probably about 97% of the floating oil on the surface is very thin sheen. Sheen's very molecules thin. Thinner than a coat of paint on the side of your house. The area where the thick oil is in about that 3% of the surface.
Currently, the slick continues to grow, and scientists estimate the well is leaking some 42,000 gallons of oil a day. Failure to contain could be catastrophic to the people, beaches, and businesses along the Gulf Coast.
The thing we're trying to minimize is land impacts because of the environmental and socioeconomic damage that it can do. One of NOAA's concerns is also guaranteeing the safety and security of the seafood, that no tainted products get to market.
The previous location of the Deepwater Horizon is at 11 o'clock.
And it's going to take a huge effort. As we fly over the location where the Deepwater Horizon was once operational, all that remains is a blanket of oil and boats.
The number of assets on scene each day increases.
Working to stop the leak, and what Coast Guard officials say might become one of the most significant oil spills in U.S. history.
What's interesting about this, Kira, also is that although not everyone can see it, there are many people that are along the Gulf Coast, especially in parts of Florida and then into Alabama, even in Mississippi. There have been reports of people who actually can smell, believe it or not, this oil slick that it just continues to expand. I mean, this thing is still coming out just really just hemorrhaging from the earth, and it's doing so at just a very rapid rate, and this is going to continue to grow. Already we've seen the numbers of the size of the slick go from, say, 30 by 40 miles. It's expanded again this morning. It's going to continue to expand through quite some time. They're doing everything they can to stem the flow, and some of the estimates from the Coast Guard say that it may take up to 90 days before they get a good handle on managing this tremendous mess. Back to you.
But Reynolds, when you look at it, though, it's still, you can't even compare it to the Exxon Valdez spill, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great point. I mean, you know, we hear this and it sounds bad, and it is very, very serious. There's no question about it. But in comparison with the Exxon Valdez back in 1989, this is, again, much smaller for the time being. But, again, we have to share with our audience that it continues to grow. The Exxon Valdez, though, if you were able to take that oil spill and you're able to pick it up and just drape it over parts of the United States, it would stretch from Maine southward and cover even parts of Virginia. So, again, it's a much bigger territory back then than compared to this one. But this is still one that we're watching very carefully, trying to prevent this from being something similar to what we saw decades ago.
All right, and we're watching it too. Reynolds, thanks so much. Rob Marciano, let me bring you in here. Where is the oil slick moving right now? Because I know you're watching it along with Reynolds.
It's kind of drifted a little bit further away from shore, but that's because the winds have been so strong offshore the past couple of days, and that's is expected to shift. The deal with the ocean currents, with the Gulf currents, it's pretty complicated in this very spot. It's almost like the intersection between two very different currents, the loop current and Florida current that kind of goes around Florida, which gives Florida some clear water. And then the close current near the Louisiana shoreline kind of definitely goes from east to west. So it's right at that spot. If it moves a little bit further to the west, it gets picked up by this current. If it moves further south and east, it'll get picked up by this current. Over the next couple of days, our winds are going to switch, and we'll see more of a south and southeasterly wind, and that would tend to bring it a little bit closer to the Louisiana shoreline. But it's still days before that would become an issue, and hopefully by then they'll have at least the bulk of that crude oil cleaned up in one way, shape, or form.